Hello everyone. My name is Sri Rekha. I am from Excel Study Circle. So I hope everyone is safe and fine at your place. So today we are going to have the second session of the chapter Matter in Our Surroundings. So this is the chapter from class 9 CBSE textbook. So we have already seen the first few topics of this particular chapter in the previous session. So if anybody have missed it, so please do watch the first session so that you'll have the continuity. So I'll have a very quick recall on whatever we have learned in the first session. So we have learned about matter. So matter is nothing. It's a substance which is having its own mass, which is having its own volume, and which can be perceived by our senses. So, for example, we can take the table, the chair, the air we breathe. So, all can be considered to be matter. Why? Because these are having some sort of mass and volume, and it occupies some space on its own, right? And all the emotions are something that which we cannot find the volume or mass, or which doesn't occupy any space, which cannot be considered to be a matter. Then we learned that matter is made up of very tiny particles, which is called as atoms. And those atoms constitute the basic fundamental units of all the matter. And atoms are extremely small, that their size is beyond our imagination. Then we have understood regarding the characteristics of particles of matter. So, mainly three characteristics. The first one, the particles of matter, they are continuously moving. And the second point, the particles of matter, they attract between each other. And the particles of matter, they have some sort of space in between them. We call it as interparticular space, we can say, or the intermolecular space, we can say. Then we learned about diffusion, which is a process in which the two different states of matter, they intermix on their own. So that is basically diffusion. And diffusion is affected by temperature. That is, whenever the temperature is more, the particles will be having enough kinetic energy. They start vibrating more. They start moving in a very random fashion. And we can see that intermixing can happen at a faster rate. So when intermixing happen at a faster rate, diffusion can occur in a faster rate. So temperature and diffusion, they are directly related, we can say. Now, in today's session, we are going to learn regarding the states of matter. So this is a very simple topic that we are going to cover in today's session. I hope you all will be knowing about the three fundamental states of matter, right? The three fundamental states of matter include the solid, the liquid, and the gas, right? So these are the fundamental states of matter, we can say. Okay, so basically they are solid, then liquid, and gas. So in today's session, we will learn more about the uh, characteristics of all the states of matter. So students, please understand that there are the fourth and fifth state of matter. The fourth one is BEC, Bose-Einstein condensate is also there, and plasma is also there. So definitely you'll be learning this in the higher grades, but as of now, you can understand that the three fundamental states of matter, they are solid, liquid, and gas. So please be ready with your chemistry textbook. The states of matter. Observe different types of matter around you. What are its different states? We can see that matter around us exists in three different states, that is solid, liquid, and gas. These states of matter arise due to the variation in the characteristics of particles of matter. Now let us study about the properties of these three states of matter in detail. So 1.3.1, it is all regarding the solid state. So activity 1.9, let's check it out. Collect the following articles: a pen, a book, a needle, a piece of wooden stick. Sketch the shape of the above articles in your notebook by moving a pencil around them. So we are supposed to just draw a boundary around the articles that we have taken. Do all these have a definite shape, distinct boundaries, and a fixed volume? So definitely we can say that yes, it has its own shape or boundary, or we can say it is having its own volume, right? So we can say yes, it is having, right? Now, what happens if they are hammered, pulled, or dropped? If we are hammering it, pulling, or dropping it, we can say that there might be a change in shape, but still it would be very hard for us to just break it, right? We would require much more force in order to break them into pieces. But definitely when we hammer it or when we drop it or pull it, there may be a slight change in its shape. Are these capable of diffusing into each other? We have learned in the previous session all about diffusing. So regarding these solids, are they able to diffuse easily? No, right? Try compressing them by applying force. Are you able to compress them? Are you able to compress it? No, not that much, right? It would be hard for us to, compress a pen like this or to compress a book. So we'll not be able to do with the same. All the above examples are of solids. Yes, we already know that. We can observe that all this have a definite shape, distinct boundaries, and fixed volumes. That is, they're having negligible compressibility. So what do you understand by compressibility? When you try to compress a particle, it has to reduce some of its volume, right? The particles need to come closer and closer. It need to reduce its volume. In case of these solids, it's not possible basically. So solids have a tendency to maintain their shape when subjected to outside force or an external force that we apply. Solids may break under force, but it is difficult to change their shape. So we can say that they are rigid. So let's consider the following. What about a rubber band? Can it change its shape or stretching? Is it a solid? So when we stretch it, we definitely know that yes, the shape changes, it elongates, right? But once that force is, withdrawn, what happens? It comes to its original shape, or we can say that the rubber band regains its original shape. So what about sugar and salt? When kept in different jars, these take the shape of the jar. Are they solid? So whenever we take sugar or salt, as they've mentioned, in different containers with different shape or size, those sugar and salt, they occupy that container, and we can say that it takes the shape of the container. So do you think that sugar can be considered as a solid, or even the salt can be considered as a solid? Let's check it out. Anyways, see, question they have asked, what about a sponge? Is it a solid, yet we are able to compress it? So in case of sponge, when we try to compress it, it easily compresses. It reduces its volume, right? So as mentioned above, we have learned that solids, they are not basically compressible. So is sponge going to be an exceptional case? Think about it, okay? All right. So all the above are basically solids only. Let's check the reasons one by one. A rubber band changes shape under force, but as we've already discussed, it regains the same shape when the force is removed. If excessive force is applied, it breaks. Okay. So once we apply some force, it elongates, and when we release that force, it regains its original shape itself. And if we use excessive kind of force to the rubber band, it may even break. But still, rubber band is said to be solid only. Now, the second case, the shape of each individual sugar or salt crystal remains fixed, whether we take in our hand or put in a plate or a jar. In whatever container we are taking, it takes a shape of the container, whether it's going to be a plate or jar. But the thing is that if you consider that each sugar crystal or each salt crystal, it is having its own shape, size, and volume. And regarding the sponge, it has got so many minute holes in it, right? In which that air is trapped. So when we try to press it, the air is expelled out and we are able to compress it. So because of the tiny holes and because of that the air has occupied the tiny holes, we are able to compress it. Otherwise, we not be able to. So all these are basically solids itself. So in general, we can say that solids are very rigid in nature. The particles are very closely packed. They are very tightly packed. They are having a uniform composition throughout, we can see. A neatly arrangement of particles in case of solid. They are not compressible. They are not able to flow, right? They don't have the tendency to flow, so they are not fluids. And regarding the arrangement of particles, we can see the particles are very closely packed. Thereby, the space in between the particles is very less, or the interparticular space or the intermolecular space is going to be negligible, we can see. Okay, so all those are going to be the characteristics of a solid state substance. Now, let's go ahead to 1.3.2, the liquid state. Let's check activity 1.10. Collect the flowing water, cooking oil, milk, juice, or cold drink. Containers of different shapes. Put a 50 ml mark on these containers using a measuring cylinder from the laboratory. What will happen if these liquids are spilled on the floor? They are able to flow, right? When we have, spill the same on the floor, they'll just flow. Measure 50 ml of any one liquid and transfer into different containers one by one. Does the volume remain same? Since we are taking 50 ml of each liquid, as they've mentioned, whether it would be a water or cooking oil or milk or juice or cold drink, we're just taking 50 ml of it in whichever container we are going to transfer it. That volume remains the same, right? That 50 ml is going to be the same. It won't change, right? Does the shape of the liquid remain the same? No. Why? Because in different containers, the liquid, takes its own shape. So if the jar is going to be like elongated one, it would take the shape of that container. If it's going to be flattened one, it will, take the shape of that flattened plate, we would say. So when you pour the liquid from one container to another, does it flow easily? Yeah, we are able to make one liquid flow into another container very easily. They are having the tendency to flow. That is why the liquids are called as fluids, right? We observe that liquids have no shape but have fixed volume. So understand that 50 ml of a juice means it's just going to be 50 ml itself. If we are taking about 1 liter of milk, it is just 1 liter of milk. So the volume remains the same, but it doesn't have its own shape. It takes up the shape of the container in which the liquid is being taken up. Take up the shape of the container in which they are kept. Liquids flow. Liquids are fluids generally and change shape. So they are not rigid. They are not rigid as we have discussed in case of solids, but can be called as a fluid, right? Refer to the activities 1.4 and 1.5, where we saw that solids and liquids can diffuse into liquids. Those intermixing of particles of the two different states of matter can happen, right? So solids can diffuse into liquids. Liquids can also diffuse into liquids, we can say. The gases from the atmosphere diffuse and dissolve in water. These gases, especially oxygen and carbon dioxide, are essential for the survival of aquatic animals and plants, for their survival, right? All living creatures need to breathe for their survival. The aquatic animals can breathe underwater due to the presence of the dissolved oxygen in water. Thus, we may conclude that solids, liquids, and gases can diffuse into liquids. The rate of diffusion of liquid is higher than that of the solids. See, friends, why this is so? Because in liquids, the particles are somewhat free apart. There is some intermolecular force, of attraction, only kind of moderate force of attraction, we would say, and the particles are having some space in between them. So diffusion can happen at a faster rate than when we compare to those of the of that solid particles, right? In gases, even the particles are very far apart. So the force of attraction is going to be the least in case of gases. The particles are having that enough freedom of movement, so they move randomly, and we can say diffusion can happen at a very faster rate in case of gases, right? So this is due to the fact that in the liquid state, particles move freely and have greater space between each other as compared to particles in the solid state. So on a whole, if you want to conclude, we can say liquids are generally fluid. They're having the tendency to flow. The particles are having moderate force of attraction in between. So there is some space in between the particles, right? So they are able to move. and they are not rigid. And as mentioned about the compressibility, we cannot compress liquids as we can compress gases, right? So these are going to be the characteristics of liquid state. Now let's move ahead to 1.3.3, all about the gaseous state. Have you ever observed a balloon seller filling a large number of balloons from a single cylinder of gas? Yes, right. Inquire from him how many balloons is he able to fill from one cylinder. Ask him which gas does he have in the cylinder. So regarding activity 1.11, we can say take 300 ml syringes and close their nozzles by rubber cocks as shown in figure 1.4. Remove the pistons from all the syringes, leaving one syringe untouched. Fill water in the second and pieces of chalk in the third. So we need basically air, then water, and then chalk. We have to insert in the syringe. Insert the pistons back into the syringes. You may apply some Vaseline on the pistons before inserting them into the syringe for the smooth movement, so that we can insert that particular substance very easily into the syringe. Now try to compress the content by pushing the piston in each syringe. So students, just think of the same. If nothing is being filled inside a syringe, just the air, it would be very easy for us to just compress it, right? At the same time, if we have filled water in it, will require some sort of force in order to compress the piston. At the same time, if you have inserted a chalk piece into that syringe, it would be very difficult for us to compress it. Right. Now, what do you observe? We have just discussed the same. In which case was the piston easily pushed in case where nothing was filled inside the syringe, just the air inside it, right? What do you infer from your observation? So we have observed that gases are highly compressible as compared to solids and liquids. The LPG, which is liquefied petroleum gas cylinder that we get in our home for cooking, or the oxygen supply to hospitals in cylinder, is compressed gas basically. So compressed natural gas is used as fuels these days in vehicles due to its high compressibility. Large volume of gas can be compressed into small cylinder and transported easily. So when we try to compress, we have to apply higher pressure. So what happens is that the particles, they come closer to each other, and we can see a reduced volume of the same. So yes, we can say that gases are highly compressible. We come to know of what is being cooked in the kitchen without even entering there by the smell that reaches our nostrils. How does this smell reaches us? By the process of diffusion that we've discussed in the first session itself. The particles of the aroma of food mixed with the particles of air spread from the kitchen reaches us even farther away. The smell of hot cooked food reaches us in seconds. Compare this with the rate of diffusion of the solids and liquids. So gases are able to diffuse in a faster rate than when we compare to that of the solids and liquids, right? Due to the high speed of particles and large space between them, gases show the property of diffusing very fast into other gases. In the gaseous state, the particles move about randomly at high speed. Due to this random movement, the particles hit each other and also with the walls of the container. The pressure exerted by the gas is because of this force exerted by gas particles per unit area on the walls of the container. So you can well see in figure 1.5 like how the solid particles are arranged in a very neat fashion, right? In second case, in liquid, there is some sort of interparticular space in between them. And in case of gases, the particles are very farther apart, force of attraction is the least, and space in between them is the maximum when you compare to that of the other two states. Okay. So I hope whatever we have discussed so far, all regarding the states of matter, is clear to you. So thank you so much for watching. So let's discuss the questions which is given in your textbook. The first question: the mass per unit volume of a substance is called as density. So the formula they've given, density is equal to mass by volume. All right. Arrange the flowing in order of increasing density, they have asked. So the options are air, exhaust from chimneys, honey, water, chalk, cotton, and iron. So we can say that air will be the first option with the least density. Then comes exhaust from chimneys. Then we can say that cotton. Then we can go for water. Then honey, and then chalk, and last iron with the greater density. So once again, air, then exhaust from chimneys, then cotton, then water, honey, chalk, and iron. I hope the question is clear. Now the second question, tabulate the differences in the characteristics of states of matter. So you can learn this particular question for 5 marks. So you can take different parameters such as compressibility, rigidity, definite shape, size, volume, likewise regarding their interparticular force of attraction, the interparticular space, and you can take 5 different parameters and compare and then learn. For example, I would say solids, they are rigid, liquids and gases, they are not rigid. And solids, they cannot be considered to be as fluids, but both liquids and gases, they are fluids. Now, solids are having definite shape, size, volume, and all. And liquids, they are having definite volume, but not the shape and size. Gases, no shape, no definite volume or size, we can see. And you can go for another parameter like interparticular force of attraction. It is the highest in case of solids, moderate in case of liquids, and the least in case of the gases. Regarding the interparticular spaces, it is the least in solids, moderate in liquids, and highest in case of gases. So take different 5 parameters, then you can compare, and then you can learn about this particular question. B question, comment upon the following. Rigidity. It's a property of a substance or matter to remain or to maintain its shape even if an external force is being applied on it. To remain or to regain or to get that same shape, even when some external force is applied into it. That is basically rigidity. All the solids are very rigid in nature. We are not able to change their shape or size very easily, right? And compressibility, it's a property when a particular substance can reduce its volume when the particles come in closer contact when we apply some external force on it. Fluidity is a tendency of a substance to flow. Basically, all liquids and gases are fluids. Filling a gas in a container, yes, we are able to fill a gas in a container. Why? Because they are fluids, they are having the tendency to flow. It can flow from one container to another container, and they are having the least force of attraction. The particle space is the greatest. Yes, so it would be easy for us to fill a gas in a container. Shape, solids are having definite shape, but liquids and gases, they are not having definite shape, we can say. Kinetic energy, then we can say it's energy which is possessed by moving particles by virtue of its motion, right? So solids, particles, they are not having kinetic energy. They don't have that freedom of movement, right? They just vibrate to and fro in its own mean position, we would say. And liquids are having, the particles are having some sort of kinetic energy, and in gases, the particles are very randomly able to move, and the highest kinetic energy is for the gaseous particles. And regarding the density, it is mass by volume. Solids are having higher density, right? Now, the third question is all regarding give reason. A question, a gas fills completely the vessel in which it is kept. Yes, they are able to occupy the whole of the container in which they are being taken up. Why? Because their force of attraction is the least. The particles are having greater freedom of movement, and they are able to flow. They are fluids, right? So it occupies whole of the container in which it is being taken up. B question, a gas exerts pressure on the walls of the container. For sure, we are experiencing this kind of gaseous pressure. Why? Because the particles of gas, they are having the greatest kinetic energy. They are able to move randomly. They collide with each other. They even collide with the walls of the container in which they are being taken. So it exerts a pressure on that particular area. We can say that gases exerts pressure on the walls of the container as well, due to that movement of particles only. See question, a wooden table should be called as a solid. A wooden table can be considered to be solid. Why? Because it is having all the properties of a solid. It is rigid in nature. It's not easily compressible. It is having definite shape, definite volume, definite size, and it's not fluid. and we can say that the particles are not having the freedom of movement. The force of attraction between the particles is the highest. So this wooden table uh, constitute all the particles of a solid, and truly we can say that it is considered to be solid only. D question, we can easily move our hand in air, but to do the same through a solid block of wood, we need a karate expert. In case of air, we can say that there is a lot of space in between the particles, right? So it would be very easy for us to just blow away. Why? Because there is some space in between the particles. We doesn't require much effort or force to go through the particles in between the air. But in case of wooden block of wood, they have mentioned, or the solid wood, the particles are closely packed, tightly packed. They are very rigid, and they doesn't have the sort of interparticular space in between them. So it would be very difficult for us to just move our hands in between the solid block of wood. Okay. And the fourth question, liquids generally have lower density as compared to that of solids, but you must have observed that ice floats on water. Find out why. So definitely liquids are having low density, but solids are having higher density. That is for sure. But ice, which is a solid form of water, is having the low density when we compare to that of water. Why? Because when you take the structure of ice, it is having that cage-like structure in which so many vacant spaces are there. So what happens is that density of the ice is less than that of the density of water. So any substance which is having low density than water will float on the water, and any substance which is having more density than when we compare to that of water will sink. So because of that particular structure of ice, which is having too many vacant spaces in between it, we can say that ice definitely flows on water, it doesn't sink. So that's all for today's session. I hope whatever we have covered today is very much clear for you. So please comment below if you're having any kind of doubts or particular confusions regarding any topics that we have discussed. So let's see on our third session. So at that time, we'll be learning about how we can change matter from one state into another. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. So see you soon.